Om Ajnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yen Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatarane Trinadapi Sunichena Torar Iva Sihishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Hare Nama Hare Nama Hare Nama Vakivalam Kalau Nastyiva 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 Gatiranyata. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adigo Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasa Adigo Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasa Adigo Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Haraye Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Gopala Govinda Rama Shri Madhusudana Haraye Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Gopala Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana Haraye Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Gopala Govinda Rama Shri Madhusudana Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda 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 Jaya Jaya. 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 Krishna 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 Hey. Krishna 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 Hey. Krishna 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 Rakshamam. Krishna 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 Pahimam. Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rakshamam. Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Pahimam. Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rakshamam. Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Pahimam. Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rakshamam. Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Pahimam. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So where we left off, Krishna sent Uddhava to Vrindavan with a message for the residents of Vrindavan and a special message for the Gopis. Krishna has not returned to Vrindavan since he left for Mathura to kill Kamsa. And after killing Kamsa, Krishna was initiated by Garga Muni into the Gayatri Mantra. Then Krishna spent time in the Gurukul of Sandipani Muni. And Krishna is remaining in Mathura to give audience to his original mother and father, Vasudeva and Devaki. Uddhava arrived to see Krishna, and Krishna decided that he would deliver a message to the residents of Vrindavan, because Krishna knew that the residents of Vrindavan would be very much missing him in the mood of separation. So the very last thing we heard last week was Radharani talking in mad ecstasy with the bumblebee. She took the bumblebee as a messenger from Krishna, and so she was accusing Krishna, and actually Uddhava, by addressing the bumblebee. And she said many disparaging things about Krishna, because Radharani is feeling very, very hurt due to Krishna's absence. So this is part 2 of Radharani's mad talks with the bumblebee. This first excerpt is called Radharani's Regret. While Radharani was talking with the bumblebee, and the bee was flying hither and thither, the bee all of a sudden disappeared from her sight. Radha was in full mourning due to separation from Krishna and felt ecstasy by talking with the bumblebee. But as soon as the bee disappeared, Radharani became almost mad, thinking that the messenger bee might have returned to Krishna, informing her about everything she was talking against him. Radharani then began to think, "Oh, Krishna must be very sorry to hear it." So in this way, Radha was overwhelmed by yet another type of ecstasy. And in the meantime, the bee, flying hither and thither, reappeared before her, and Radharani then began to think, "No, it seems that Krishna is still kind to me. For in spite of the messengers carrying disruptive messengers, Krishna is so kind that he has again sent the bee to take me to him." Radharani was very careful this time not to say anything against Krishna. "Oh, my dear bumblebee friend, I now welcome you. Krishna is so kind that he has again sent you. Oh, Krishna is so kind and affectionate to me that Krishna has fortunately sent you back in spite of your carrying my message against him. All good fortune to you, my dear friend, Mr. Bumblebee. Now, you may ask from me whatever you want, and I shall give you anything, because you are so kind to me. You must have come back to take me to Krishna, because Krishna must be unable to come here, being surrounded by many new girlfriends in Mathura. But after all, you are a tiny creature. So how can you take me to Krishna? How will you be able to help me meet Krishna while he is taking rest there with the goddess of fortune, embracing her to his chest? Never mind. Let us forget all these things about my going there or sending you. Please let me know how Krishna is faring in Mathura. Tell me if Krishna still remembers his foster father, Nanda Maharaj, his affectionate mother, Yashoda, his cowherder boyfriends, and his poor friends like us Gopis. I am sure Krishna must sometimes sing about us, who served him just like maidservants without any payment. So, is there any possibility that Krishna will come back and place his aguru-scented hand on our heads? Please put all these inquiries before Krishna. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that the goddess of fortune, Sri, has the power to assume many different forms. Thus, when Krishna enjoys with other women, Sri stays on Krishna's chest in the form of a golden line known as Sri Vatsa. When Krishna is not consorting with other women, Sri puts aside this form and gives Krishna pleasure in her naturally beautiful form as a young woman. Srimati Radharani continued to think, since Krishna was once satisfied in Vraja, but left for Mathura city, won't Krishna also develop a desire to leave Mathura and go somewhere else? Mathura is so close to Vrindavan and that it is possible Krishna may even come back here. Krishna is the son of a respectable gentleman, Nanda Maharaj. So Krishna must be staying in Mathura because of his sense of obligation to his father, who authorized Krishna's going there. But on the other hand, while Nanda's whole life is dedicated exclusively to Krishna, Nanda is so innocent that he allowed himself to be tricked by the Yadus who brought Krishna to Mathura. Indeed, Krishna must be now thinking, alas, alas, since even my father could not bring me back to Vraja, what can I do to return there? Thus, Krishna must be impatient to come back here to Vrindavan. And so Krishna must have sent you, O bumblebee, as his messenger. It is only because Nanda is so innocent that he allowed his own son to leave. If Nanda had allowed Krishna's mother, the queen of Vraja, to do so, Yashoda would have climbed onto Akrura's chariot and, holding her son by his neck, gone off to Mathura with Krishna, followed by all of us gopis. But that was not possible. Ever since Krishna left, Nanda Maharaj has been stunned by separation from Krishna, and Nanda's treasury rooms, storehouses, kitchens, sleeping quarters, opulent houses, and so on, are now vacant. Unswept and uncleansed, they are littered with grass, dust, leaves, and cobwebs. Does Krishna ever remember his father's houses? And does Krishna sometimes remember Subala and his other cowherder boyfriends, who are now lying stunned in other neglected houses? The women in Mathura who now associate with Krishna cannot know how to serve Krishna in the way that pleases him the most. So when they see Krishna is not satisfied, and they ask how they can make Krishna happy, I wonder if Krishna tells them about us gopis. Yes, Krishna must tell the women in Vrindavan, "O you city ladies, you cannot please me as much as the gopis of Vraja, for they are most expert in stringing flower garlands, perfuming their bodies with ointments, playing various rhythms and melodies on stringed instruments, dancing and singing in the rasa dance, displaying their beauty, charm, and cleverness, and skillfully playing at questions and answers. The gopis of Vraja are especially expert in the pastimes of meeting one's lover and showing jealous anger and other signs of pure love and affection." O bumblebee, surely Krishna must know all of this. Therefore, Krishna will probably tell the women of Mathura, "My dear ladies of the Yadu clan, please go back to your families, for I no longer desire to associate with you. Indeed, I am going back to Vraja early tomorrow morning." So just when Krishna will speak like this and come back here to place his hand fragrant with a guru on our heads, when will that happen? Then Krishna will console us, saying, "O beloved of my heart, I swear to you that I will never abandon you again and go elsewhere. Indeed, I have not been able to find anyone in all the three worlds with even a trace of your good qualities. Some authorities say that Krishna, eager to drink the sweetness of his beloved Radhika's speech, actually assumed the form of the messenger bee himself. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this next section is entitled, Uddhava reads Krishna's message to the Gopis. Uddhava was standing nearby, and he heard Radharani talking in this way, as if Radharani had become almost mad for Krishna. Uddhava was exceedingly surprised at how the Gopis were accustomed to think of Krishna constantly in that topmost ecstasy of Mahabhava love. Uddhava had brought a message in writing from Krishna, and now he wanted to present it before the Gopis just to pacify them. Uddhava then said, "O my dear Gopis, your mission of human life is now successful. You are all wonderful devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you are eligible to be worshipped by all kinds of people. You are worshipable throughout the three worlds because your minds are wonderfully absorbed in the thought of Vasudeva, Krishna. You must know that Krishna is the goal of all pious activities and ritualistic performances, such as giving charity, rigidly following the austerity of vows, undergoing severe penances, and igniting the fire of sacrifice. Krishna is the purpose behind the chanting of different mantras, the reading of the scriptures, controlling the senses, and concentrating the mind in meditation. These are some of the many processes for self-realization and the attainment of the perfection of life. But actually, they are meant only for realizing Krishna and dovetailing oneself in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada now comments, this is the last instruction of the Bhagavad Gita as well. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja ahang twang sarva papebhyo mokshayashyami ma shuchaha. Although there are descriptions of different processes of self-realization in the Bhagavad Gita, in the end, Krishna recommended one give up everything and simply surrender unto him. All other processes are meant for teaching one how to surrender ultimately to the lotus feet of Krishna. The Bhagavad Gita also says, Bahunang janmanam ante yanavan mang prapadyate Vasudeva sarvam iti sa maha-ama sadurlabha. So this surrendering process is completed by a sincere person after executing the processes of self-realization in wisdom and austerity for many births. Since the perfection of such austerity was completely manifest in the lives of the Gopis, Uddhava was fully satisfied upon seeing their transcendental position. Uddhava continued to speak. And so, my dear Gopis, The mentality you have developed in relationship with Krishna is very, very difficult to attain, even for great sages and saintly persons. You have attained the highest perfectional stage of life. So it is a great boon for you that you have fixed your minds upon Krishna and have decided to have Krishna only, giving up your families, house, relatives, husbands, and children, only for the sake of the Supreme Personality. Because your minds are now fully absorbed in Krishna, who is the Supreme Soul, universal love has automatically developed in you. I think myself very fortunate that I have been favored by your grace to see you in this ecstatic situation. When Uddhava said that he had a message from Krishna, the Gopis were more interested in hearing Krishna's message than in hearing about their exalted position. After all, the Gopis did not very much like being praised for their high position. Thus, they showed anxiety to hear the message Uddhava had brought from Krishna. Uddhava then said, "My dear Gopis, I am especially deputed to carry this message to you, who are such great and gentle devotees. Krishna has specifically sent me to you because I am Krishna's most confidential servitor." Uddhava did not deliver to the Gopis the written message brought from Krishna. Uddhava rather personally read it to them. Krishna's message was gravely written so that not only the Gopis, but all empiric philosophers might understand ultimately how pure love of God is intrinsically integrated with all the different energies of the Supreme Lord. From the Vedic information, it is understood that the Supreme Lord has multi-energies. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. Also, the Gopis were such intimate personal friends of Krishna that while Krishna was writing the message for them, Krishna was so moved that Krishna could not write distinctly. As a student of Brihaspati, Uddhava had very sharp intelligence. So instead of handing over the written message, Uddhava thought it wise to read it personally and explain it to the Gopis. Uddhava then said, "These are the words of the personality of Godhead. My dear Gopis, my dear friends, please know that separation between ourselves is impossible at any time, at any place, or under any circumstance. Why? Because I, Krishna, am all-pervading." Prabhupada comments, this all-pervasiveness of Lord Krishna is explained in Bhagavad Gita in both the 9th and 7th chapters. In the 9th chapter, it is described, Maya tatam idang sarvam jagad avyakta murtina matshani sarvabhutani na chahang teshu avastita. Krishna is all-pervasive in his impersonal feature. Everything rests in Krishna, but Krishna is not personally present everywhere. And in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Bhumir apa nalo vayu kang mano buddhir evacha. Ahankara itiyang me bhinna prakritir ashtadha. Aparayam itastwan yang prakriting vidhi me param. Jiva bhutang mahabaho yayedang dharyate jagat. The five gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, and sky, and the three subtle elements, mind, intelligence, and the false ego, are all Krishna's inferior energies. But there is another, superior energy, which is called the living entity. The living entities are also directly part and parcel of Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is both the material and efficient cause of everything. Krishna is always intermingled with everything as both cause and effect. Not only the Gopis, but all living entities are always inseparably connected with Krishna in all circumstances. The Gopis, however, are perfectly and thoroughly in cognition of this relationship with Krishna, whereas the living entities, under the spell of Maya, the illusory energy, are forgetful of Krishna and think themselves separate identities having no connection with Krishna. Love of Krishna, or Krishna consciousness, is therefore the perfection of real knowledge in understanding things as they are. Our minds can never be vanquished. The mind is constantly occupied with some kind of thought, and the subject matter of such thought cannot be outside the 8 elements of Krishna's inferior material energy. So one who knows this philosophical aspect of all thoughts is actually a wise man, and thus surrenders unto Krishna. The Gopis are the epitome, the quintessence of this perfectional stage of knowledge. The Gopis are not simple mental speculators. Their minds are always in Krishna. The mind itself is nothing but the energy of Krishna. Actually, any person who can think, feel, and will cannot be separated from Krishna. But the state in which one can understand one's eternal relationship with Krishna is called Krishna Consciousness. The diseased condition in which one cannot understand his or her eternal relationship with Krishna is the contaminated stage, or Maya. Since the Gopis are on the platform of pure transcendental knowledge, their minds are always filled with Krishna consciousness. For example, as there is no separation between fire and air, there is no separation between Krishna and the living entities. When the living entities forget Krishna, they are not in their normal condition. As for the Gopis, because they are always thinking of Krishna, they are on the absolute stage of perfection in knowledge. The so-called empiric philosophers sometimes think that the path of bhakti is meant for the less intelligent. But unless the so-called man of knowledge comes to the platform of bhakti, his knowledge is certainly impure and imperfect. Actually, the stage of forgetfulness of our relationship with Krishna is separation. And that is also illusory, because there is no factual separation. The Gopis were not situated in that illusory condition of life. So even from the philosophical point of view, for them there was no separation. Uddhava thus continued reading Krishna's message. Nothing is separate from me. The whole cosmic manifestation is resting on me and is not separate from me. Before the creation, I was existing. Prabhupada now comments. This statement of Krishna to the Gopis is confirmed in the Vedic literature. Eko Narayana Asin na Brahma na Ishana. Before the material creation, there was only Narayana. There were no Brahma. There was no Shiva. The whole cosmic manifestation is manipulated by the three modes of material nature. It is said that Lord Brahma, the incarnation of the quality of passion, creates this material universe. But Lord Brahma is only the secondary creator. The original creator is Narayana. And this is also confirmed by Shankara Acharya when he says, Narayana Paro Vyaktat. Shankaracharya wrote, Narayan is transcendental, beyond this cosmic creation. So in this way, nothing within this cosmic manifestation is separate from Krishna, although Krishna's original spiritual form is not visible in everything. Krishna creates, maintains, and annihilates the whole cosmic manifestation by expanding himself in different incarnations. Everything is Krishna, and everything depends on Krishna. But Krishna himself is not perceived in the material energy, and therefore it is called Maya, or illusion. In the spiritual energy, however, Krishna is perceived at every step in all circumstances. This perfectional stage of understanding is represented by the Gopis. As Krishna is always aloof from the cosmic manifestation, and it is completely dependent on him, so a living entity is also completely aloof from his or her material conditioned life, although the material body has developed on the basis of the soul's spiritual existence. In Bhagavad Gita, the whole cosmic manifestation is accepted as the mother of the living entities, and Krishna is the father. Just as the father impregnates the mother by injecting the living entity within the womb, Krishna injects all the living entities into the womb of the material nature by the agency of Shambhu. The living entities come out in different bodies according to their different fruitive activities. But in all circumstances, the living entity is aloof from this material conditioned life. If we simply study our own bodies, we can understand how a living entity is always aloof from one's bodily engagement. Every action of the body takes place by the interaction of the three modes of material nature. We can see at every moment many changes taking place in our bodies, but the spirit soul is aloof from all the changes. one cannot create, nor annihilate, nor interfere with the action of material nature. The living entity is therefore entrapped by the material body and conditioned in 3 different stages of consciousness, namely, while awake, while asleep, and while unconscious. The mind acts throughout all 3 conditions of life. The living entity, in his or her sleeping or dreaming condition, sometimes sees something as real, and when awake, sees the same thing as unreal. It is concluded, therefore, that under certain circumstances, one accepts something as real, and under other circumstance, one accepts the very same thing as unreal. These matters are the subject of study for the empiric philosopher or the Sankhya yogi. To come to the right conclusion, Sankhya yogis undergo severe austerities and penances, practicing control of the senses and also by renunciation. All these different ways of determining the ultimate goal of life are compared to rivers, while Krishna is compared to the ocean. As the rivers flow down toward the ocean, all attempts for knowledge flow towards Krishna. After many, many births of endeavor, when one actually comes to Krishna, he or she attains the perfectional stage. Krishna therefore says in the Bhagavad Gita, Klesho adhikataras tesham. Everyone is pursuing the path of realizing me, but those who have adopted courses without any bhakti or devotional service find their endeavor very troublesome. It is a fact, Krishna cannot be understood unless one comes to the point of bhakti. In Bhagavad Gita, 3 paths are enunciated: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Those who are too much addicted to fruitive activities are advised to perform actions which will ultimately bring them to bhakti. Those who are addicted to pursuits of empiric philosophy are also advised to act in such a way that they will come to realize bhakti. Therefore, Karma Yoga is therefore different from ordinary karma, and Jnana Yoga is different from ordinary jnana. Ultimately, as stated by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktya mam abhijanati. Only through execution of devotional service, only through bhakti, can one actually understand Krishna as he is. The perfectional stage of devotional service was thus achieved by the Gopis because they did not care to know anything but Krishna. It is confirmed in the Vedas, Kasmin bhagavo vigyate sarvam idang vigyatam bhavati. This means that simply by knowing Krishna, one automatically acquires all other knowledge. Uddhava then continued reading Krishna's message. My dear Gopis, transcendental knowledge of the Absolute is no longer necessary for you Gopis because you were accustomed to loving me from the very beginning of your lives. Prabhupada explains, knowledge of the Absolute Truth is specifically required for persons who desire liberation from material existence. One who has attained love for Krishna is already on the platform of liberation, as stated in the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Mang chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samati yaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Anyone engaged in unalloyed devotional service is to be considered situated already on the transcendental platform of liberation. The Gopis did not actually feel any pangs of material existence, but they felt separation from Krishna. Therefore, Krishna said in his message to the Gopis, "My dear Gopis, just to increase your super excellent love for me, I have purposely separated myself from you so that you may be in constant meditation on me." Prabhupada explains, thus, the Gopis are in the perfectional stage of meditation. Yogis are generally more fond of meditating than they are of executing devotional service to the Lord. But the yogis do not know that the perfection of the yoga system is actually the attainment of devotion. This constant meditation on Krishna by the Gopis is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita by Krishna himself in the final verse of the 6th chapter to be the topmost yoga. Yoginam api sarvesham madgitain antar atmana sraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mata. Krishna knew very well the psychology of women. When a woman's beloved is away, she thinks of him more in meditation than when he is present before her. So Krishna wanted to teach through the behavior of the Gopis that one who is constantly in trance like the Gopis surely attains Krishna's lotus feet. Lord Chaitanya himself taught people in general this method of Vipralambha Seva, which is the method of rendering service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the feeling of intense separation. Lord Chaitanya's disciples, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, also taught worship of Krishna in the feeling of the Gopis in separation. Indeed, the prayer of Srinivas Acharya about the 6 Goswamis explains these matters very clearly. Tyaktva turnam ashesha mandalapati sraining sadatuchavat bhutvadina ganesha kau karunaya kaupina kantasritau gopi bhava rasamritabdi lahari kalola magno mahur Vande rupa sanatanao raguyago Sri Jiva Gopala Lakau. The 6 Goswami disciples of Lord Chaitanya were always absorbed in the ocean of transcendental feelings in the mood of the Gopis. When they lived in Vrindavan, they were simply searching for Krishna and crying out, Hey Radhe Vrajadevaki cha Lalite, Hey Nanda Suno Kuta, Sri Govardhana Kalpa Pada Patale, Kalindi Vane Stuta, Goshantavati Saravato Vrajapure, Kedair Mahavivalau, Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyugo, Sri Jiva Gopalakau. The 6 Goswamis cried out, Where are you, Krishna? Oh Gopis, where are you? Where are you, Srimati Radharani? The six Goswamis never said, oh, now we have seen Radha and Krishna, and therefore our mission is fulfilled. No, their mission remained always unfulfilled, for they never met Radha and Krishna. Krishna thus reminded the Gopis that at the time of the Rasa dance, those of them who could not join him from the Rasa Leela gave up their dead bodies simply by thinking of Krishna. Absorption in Krishna consciousness by feeling separation is thus the quickest method for attainment of the lotus feet of Krishna. By the personal statement of Krishna, the Gopis were convinced about the strength of feeling separation. The Gopis were actually experiencing the supernatural method of Krishna worship, and the Gopis were much relieved by understanding that Krishna was not away from them, but was always with them. Namaste Narasimhaya Prahlada Klada Dayane Hiranya Kashipurvakshaha Shilakankanakalaye Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimho Yato Yato Yamitato Nrsimha Bahi Nrsimha Hridaye Nrsimho Nrsimham Adim Sharanam Prapadye Nrsimham Adim Sharanam Prapadye Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Sringam Dalita Hiranyakashipo Tanu Bringam Keshavadrita Narahadi Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadish Jai Jagadish Jai Jagadisha Hare Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Om Tat Sat